Hey guys, Mike here from Motomule, and today's video is about some accessories that I make for this sexy beast right here. Namely, these soft luggage support racks and this top cargo rack. In this video, I'll show you some of the features of these racks, demonstrate how to install them on your TW200, and tell you where you can get some for yourself. Those of you who subscribe to this Motomule YouTube channel probably remember seeing the homemade tubing bender tools that I made a while back. Be sure to check out those videos if you like seeing homemade tools. I'll throw a link up above and in the description of this video. Well, these racks for the Tdub are one of the products that I build with those homemade tubing benders. The Tdub is one of my favorite motorcycles. Not because it's fast, not because it's good looking, and not because I can take it off of sweet jumps. It's one of my favorite motorcycles because I can't help but have a shit-eating grin on my face when I ride one. I look a bit like a circus bear when I'm on one, but they are the perfect mule of a motorcycle. They'll go anywhere you point it, and they don't care if you have them loaded down with 2 people and a trailer. And who doesn't love a really fat rear tire? So, why build these racks for the Tdub? There are others on the market. What sets these racks apart from the others? Let's dive into that. The biggest reason these racks came to be was the lack of a good soft luggage support system for the TW200. Now, the Cycle Racks brand cargo rack is very popular with TW owners. I'd bet a whole dollar that the majority of Tdubs outfitted with cargo racks sport the Cycle Racks brand cargo rack. The Cycle Racks rack is great for hauling a lot of stuff on top of it. And if you're a welder yourself, you could add some additional tubing to help it support side soft luggage as well. But if you don't want to mess with modifying an existing cargo rack, then you're stuck with saggy soft luggage that might just push into your hot exhaust and melt something, or worse yet, swing under your fender and get ripped off by that meaty rear tire. This problem is what pushed the soft luggage side support racks into existence. And yes, they work with the Cycle Racks brand rear cargo rack. Alright, I'm pretty excited. This is going to be a nice, clean, elegant solution to hang side bags off the side of your Tdub. Holds them on there nice and secure. You know, with soft luggage, the straps across the top hold most of the weight. So all these little racks need to do is give you places to tie in so you can secure and keep them from wiggling too much. You can see that gives you space for 2 straps in the back, and then even places to tie in the front. This is going to work great. If you look here at the tail rack, you'll notice it's got mounting holes around the perimeter that you could mount anything you want, you know, whether it be an egg crate, hard luggage, Tupperware, what have you. And then if you look here in the center, there are 2 mounting holes. Those are spaced to bolt a Rotopax holder right there without any adapters or anything. So, and then if we look here at the side, you can see that there's plenty of places you could hook a bungee or whatever to. And then these holes back here, if you ever wanted to move your tail lights back to a different location, you could do that with that hole there. Alright, let's get to the install process of putting on this top cargo rack and these soft luggage side supports. The first step is to remove the seat. Next, remove the rear fender. Install the new subframe mounting bracket. Then, reinstall your rear fender. Now, you can install the top cargo rack. Then, loosen up your passenger pegs and install the Soft Luggage side supports. Repeat this process for the other side. Then, reinstall your seat, and voila, you are done! Alright, I've got the TW up on a Harbor Freight bike lift just because I'm tall and I'm old, so I don't like bending over. I've laid out the parts we're going to install. I got the top cargo rack, the soft luggage side guard supports, got all the hardware laid out, and some of the tools I think I might need to do this. Alright, let's tear this thing apart a little bit and install these pieces. The first step in the process is to remove the seat, and it's held on with two 6mm bolts that usually have a 10mm hex head on it. So I've got a small ratchet with a 10mm socket, and we'll remove those two bolts and get the seat off of here. And then after you've got those two bolts removed, just lift up on it and pull it back. You'll see that there's a little hook at the front of the seat that goes underneath the top of this shock mount. A little suction cup that's supposed to hold it against the tank. So that's all there is to removing the seat. The next step is to remove the rear fender. It's held on with four 6mm bolts, again with 10mm hex heads, and then two little kind of rubber grommets that you can just pull off of there. So we'll go ahead and get that off of there. So there are two bolts on the top and then two on the bottom underneath. Once you have the four bolts removed, you can lift this up, pull this out, pull this out, and you can see there's just little C's that grab onto rubber grommets at the front of the fender. One thing to note, the rearward bolts that hold the fender on are just going into the plastic of the fender, so never over tighten those bolts. Alright, now that we've got this TW stripped down, the seat and fender removed, you can get a much better idea of what the subframe looks like. Now one thing I want to point out, you can see that when Yamaha was designing this bike, they brought the subframe back and it ends right here. You can maybe see it better on that side. It almost appears that the fact of making this bike street legal, adding the taillight, turn signals and all that, was an afterthought. I mean, you can see that it mounts on to the rear of this original subframe and extends back, but it's much lighter weight tubing than the subframe itself. So one of the things we did in this designing this cargo rack and the side luggage guards was to make sure that we mounted it to this original, more heavy-duty part of the subframe. And to accomplish that, I'll show you the next step here and how we did that. Alright, so in the effort of keeping everything that we add to this mounted to the stronger part of the subframe rather than any of this structured back here, we've got this plate here. Now, Yamaha didn't give you any real points to mount side luggage supports or really a cargo rack or anything. A lot of the racks you see on the market will maybe extend clear down here to add support. I know that the popular cycle racks mounts way up here, stretches way back in order to give enough strength to really support anything. So we want to do that same kind of thing, make sure we mount to the stronger portion of the frame. And that's what this bracket does. So this will just come up from underneath. You remove these two bolts that hold on this extra structure for the taillights and mount that right in place. And what that does is gives you two new mounting points on each side of the bike to mount accessories. So the rearward mounts of this will be for the top cargo rack. The more forward holes will be for the side luggage supports. Alright, so let's get that installed. In order to install that little bracket, we're going to remove this 6mm screw and this 6mm screw, again with a 10mm hex head. And we're going to replace those with some longer hardware that'll come with your kit to mount that bracket in there. Now that we've got that bracket mounted in there, we can put the rear fender back on. But first, you can see now that we've got two nice new mounting points on this side and two nice new mounting points on this side. The mounting points Yamaha forgot to give us. Again, I want to point out that these rearward two screws that are holding the fender on from underneath are just going into the plastic of the fender itself. So do not over tighten them. At this point, I've put in the rear two screws holding it on, and it's snapped into its rubber grommets on the front, but I've left out the two from above that are holding the rear fender on. Because if you've got the top cargo rack, its forwardmost mounting points use that those two fender mounting bolts. So we'll go ahead and put that on now. So now we'll go ahead and mount the top cargo rack. In this situation, the bolts that we're holding the fender on from above are plenty long enough to go through this additional material for the front mounting point of the cargo rack. So we'll get to use the stock hardware in this situation. And I've just run those down finger tight, so the rack's just kind of loose sitting here, but at least it's in place. And then we can put in the hardware that holds it in back here. So the top cargo rack comes with the hardware to mount it at its rearwardmost position. And all that is a bolt, a washer, and a nut, and then this spacer for each side. So you just slide the spacer in between the bracket coming down from the top surface of the rack, and then the new mounting point bracket. And again, it uses the rearward most holes in that new subframe bracket. So we've got the bolt, a nut, and a washer, and this spacer. So the spacer just fits in between the rack and that subframe bracket. Bolt through, lift it up to line it up, put the washer on, and then the nut on the back side. And then once you've got all the hardware in there loosely, you can go through and start tightening things up. So that completes the install of the top cargo rack. If that's all you've got, you could go ahead and put your seat back on and you are done. In this video, we're going to go ahead and show you the next step, which would be the soft luggage side supports. So now we've gotten to the portion where we're going to install the side luggage supports. It'll use this new hole that we got from that subframe bracket. And then it also utilizes the top bolt hole location for the passenger foot peg. On this model I have, it requires a 5mm hex to remove those. We'll remove this one and we'll crack this one loose just to give us a little freedom to move this around, because sometimes it'll bind and want to cross thread this. But on install, you're going to get in your kit a new longer bolt for here. The first step to installing the side guards is to crack loose the bolts holding the rear passenger peg in place. The bottom one, I just crack it loose. The top one, we're going to completely remove because you're going to get new hardware in your kit. So the longer bolt that comes with the kit will go through the rack first, then through the passenger foot peg, and then thread into that original passenger peg mounting point. You just want to thread that in hand tight so that you have the freedom to move this around and line it up at the back. And at the back, it's just a bolt nut and washer, no spacer this time. And again, it will mount on the forwardmost set of holes on that new subframe bracket. So now you've got that side guard mounted into place. You've got a nice place to secure your soft luggage to. You run the straps around here, keeps it out of your exhaust, and on the other side, out of your tire. So, and the process for the other side is exactly the same. Just uses the top foot peg mount and the forward mounting pole on that side. I'll go ahead and do that. Same thing on this side. Loosen up, just crack loose this bottom foot peg mount and remove the top one. Same thing, the longer bolt goes through the front mounting point, through the top mounting point of the passenger foot peg, and into the frame. And then the shorter bolt, the washer and nut, mount the back of it. Again, through the front hole, bolt from the outside, washer on the inside, and then finally the nut. Now you've mounted all the new hardware, it's time to put the seat back on, and you are done. That concludes the installation of the top cargo rack and the side soft luggage supports. You will have some hardware left over. You'll have the two bolts that originally held the top end of the passenger foot peg, and then you'll have two shorter 6mm, probably 10mm hex heads that originally held the smaller extra subframe to the original big subframe. These were just a little too short to mount that new subframe bracket, so that kit came with longer. So don't panic that you have 4 pieces of hardware left over at the end of the install. Time to get this done.